Okay, so how do we deal with a bad owner's rep? So we talked a little bit about bad owner's reps. So the first thing I think is your attitude. You know, you have to, the best thing to do is try to get a good owner's rep. But if you don't have a good owner's rep, then you've got to just feel that you've got to kind of accept that owner's rep to a certain extent. So the first thing is communicate more, not less. Don't try and do an end run around the owner's rep. Don't try to go directly to the owner. That's not going to work for you. Now, I'm not saying don't communicate with the owner. See, this is the great thing about emails, is that you can still communicate with the owner's rep and just CC the owner. So I'm not saying that's going around them, right? That's bringing the owners, and that's what you needed to do in this case, right? Because your owner's rep was not communicating with your owner. So, I mean, I do that with husbands and wives sometimes, where, you know, the wife will send me something, and I know the husband is the budget guy. When I reply, I just CC the husband. Whoops, I'm sorry. You know me, I'm all about communication. I'm sorry I CC'd your husband, but, you know, that's just the way it is. I'm just kind of keeping things going. And I've had difficult conversations. I've had pissed off wives say, why did you copy him? He didn't need to see that. And I said, you know what, I'm sorry. But, you know, the fact is that I know this process, and it's going to affect the budget. He needs to know. So I'd be happy to talk to him about it, whatever. But you just got to communicate more. When you have that owner's rep that's trying to be that traffic cop between you and the owner, you got to communicate more. Second is practice those 4 agreements. You know, don't take things personally. You know, do your best. Be impeccable with your word. And do that with the owner's rep, and do that with the owners as well. The next is ask for help. You know, go to the owner's rep and actually try to ask him for help. Say, you know, hey, I'm having a hard time with this, or I need, you know, some help with this. How do you think is the best way to approach it? Get him to be on your side. You know, get him from being your adversary to your ally. And the next one is, you know, just again what I talked about earlier, is you're changing your attitude. Just don't resist it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you've got a great wife, but she's got a really difficult sister, you know, and it's like that sister-in-law that you love your wife, but the sister-in-law comes with it, right? So you know, you find a way to deal with your sister-in-law, and you know, and you make it work. And sometimes that's what you got to do if you've got a bad owner's rep. And then the last thing is just guide them from bad to good. So, you know, again, we go back to this, and when they're over here, just try to move them over to here. And it's not always going to work, but at least now you kind of know what the difference is. You know, you might have thought he was doing his job to manage the project. And now you know that he really should be managing the owner and not managing the project. And it's going to take more than one conversation. You can't just say, look, John, you know, I'm here to manage the project, not you. He's not going to get that if he's on that side already. But you can talk to him about it, right? And you could say, hey, you know what? If, you know, that's kind of my stuff. If I can do this, I can maybe take a little bit off of you. If you could, how you really could help is if you could go to the homeowner and you could kind of help explain this, or help us get these last finish selections done so I can keep us on budget. Okay, so how do you avoid getting a bad owner's rep on a project? I kind of said this earlier.
Call you.
Well, call me. But no, it's be proactive. It's recommend an owner's rep yourself. And really recognize, especially if you're going to have a difficult client, recognize and just explain to them. Like I said, most of my clients, the hardest thing for me is for them to understand what I do. They just don't even know that there's such a thing as an owner's rep. You ask, you know, 9 out of 10 people, I want to build a custom home. What do I need? Oh, I need a builder, I need an architect, I need an interior designer. Okay, great. What about an owner's rep? Owner's rep, what's that? Never heard of it. You know, they just don't know. It's the same thing we talked about earlier. There's not an international or a national owner's rep association. You know, we're kind of the best kept secret in the custom home building industry. So, you know, I came from the commercial side, and the commercial side, it's very common to have an owner's rep, right? But not on the residential side. And the other thing about building homes is it goes back to David Luperger's book. You know, there's this huge emotional aspect that we have to deal with that you don't deal with in the commercial side. Believe me, in my 10 years on commercial side, I did not have owners calling me freaked out because the carpet went in and it was the wrong color. You know, that just doesn't happen. So there is this whole emotional component that you as a custom home builders have to deal with. And that's what the owner's rep does for you. It manages that emotional component that you unfortunately have to deal with.